The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
85 years ago today, something happened in baseball that had not happened before and has not happened since. An opening day no-hitter thrown by Bob Feller. Rapid Robert did it for the Cleveland Indians at Chicago against the White Sox. And the cool thing about this is that on the second day of the season, the second game of the season, the White Sox players had the exact same batting average that they did on opening day. 0-0-0. No hits given up by Bob Feller on opening day. We'll look back on that. Also, we got Orioles preview coming up at 10:30. We always do Orioles preview on Wednesday. Melanie Newman, who is a groundbreaking broadcaster nationally, will join us to talk about the O's, who are scuffling right now. They're in last place. They're 6-10. Charlie Morton has not worked out as a free agent signing. He's now 0-4 with an ERA north of 9. And I don't know what the answer is going to be. They got a bunch of pitchers who are hurt, bunch of players who are hurt. And it's a long season. 16 games does not define a season. But this is not a good start for the Birds. So we will talk about that. Meantime, we've got these NBA play-in games going on. Yes, the playoffs are technically underway in the NBA. And you had the Atlanta Hawks last night with an incident that I think is, somewhat troubling. They got blown out in their game against Orlando, 120-95. And, we could talk about modern players and how much they care and so forth and so on. But what Trae Young did last night, it's really despicable. I understand frustration of players, and Trae Young is one of the best players in the league, and he had a big night with 28 points, but he essentially checked out. He checked out of the game. And there's a level of professionalism that you have to have. And what he displayed last night was anything but that. They're getting their doors blown off by Orlando. There's less than 5 minutes left to go in the game. And he picks up a pair of technical fouls. First for rifling a chest pass at referee James Williams. Then later he deflected a ball off of his foot and wouldn't give it up quickly to referee Pat Frayer. And so he received an unsportsmanlike technical for throwing the ball, and then he picked up the second technical. And in a pool report, Williams, the referee, was asked, James Williams, why he picked it up. And he said, for kicking the ball and making a mockery of the game as if we were attempting to shoot the free throw for the first technical foul. By the rule, when the player receives two unsportsmanlike calls, he's ejected from the game. That is a damning thing to say, for making a mockery of the game. And I don't care who you are, at what level you play at. I never rose above the rec level. I played high school football, and believe me, we got blown out a whole bunch of times. But the lesson you learn is you play till the whistle. You play till the end of the game. You give it your best. And, what happens in the NFL, a lot of times teams are bad and they get blown out, but everything you do goes on tape. And if you are released, teams will look at it, how you perform when your team is out of the game. Now, Trae Young doesn't have to worry about being released. He makes millions and millions of dollars. But don't you have some responsibility to the game than to act like a petulant child and get yourself thrown out for things that you're not supposed to do? And if you want to look at the foul disparity here, Orlando in the blowout win, they had 25 fouls. Atlanta had 18. So they had 7 fewer fouls. Hawks took 34 free throws. The Magic took 27. So what's his beef here? This was Trae Young after the game with his explanation.
Take my frustration on the rest, not just for me, it's for my teammates. I see Dyson Daniels going. I mean, you may not be a household name yet, but he deserves the same amount of respect as some of these other guys. And if you see a foul, you should call the foul, and that's pretty much all it was for me. I mean, for me, it's just that, nothing more, nothing less. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's one game. I'm not letting it dwindle. I'm not letting people think about what I'm feeling and things like that. Obviously, I told them I was sticking up for the squad, and I'm not going to let the rest frustrate me like that in our next game. I know we got a winner go home next, so I'm going to be ready. And I told the team I'm going to be ready for them. We got to go home and take care of business.
So that's how you stick up for your teammates, acting like a child. That's really classy. Dyson Daniels. Okay, I mean, you didn't like the foul call on him. So you got to rifle a chest pass at the ref and kick the ball? That's what you have to do? Come on. This is not what you should be doing as a professional. And I'm going to give you some old school stuff, and you can say, oh, God, here he goes again. But I remember when the league was struggling. In the late 70s, this was not what it is now. There was even some talk that the league might fold. That's how bad it was. And they came up with a salary cap to help control things. And along came Magic and Bird and really, boosted the league into what it ultimately became. But I remember people like Julius Erving, who understood his responsibility. He was as classy a person as we've ever had in the NBA. And he would sit long after games and ice his knees and talk to anybody who wanted to talk to him, answer questions very sincerely. You never saw him act like that. Michael Jordan was as competitive as there ever was. I don't remember too many blowouts, but I'll bet you in blowouts, he was trying his best at the end of the game, not throwing the ball at the referee and kicking it. Those are not things that you do. Magic Johnson, as a rookie, as a 19-year-old kid, understood this. And he looked at Dr. J as a mentor for that. And there were other players in the league. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar never handled himself like that. This is how you continue to build your league and continue to get people interested in seeing you play, not acting like a child. And that, I thought, was just awful. Now, they're not out of it yet because they still have another chance the way this play-in works. So they will host either Chicago or Miami on Friday to determine the number 8 seed and play Cleveland. So you got the Bulls and Heat playing an elimination game in Chicago tonight. So there's that. And then there's Steph Curry. And Steph Curry has 4 rings. And his legacy is secure and even enhanced by what he did in the Olympics to help lock up the gold medal. And when crunch time comes in one of these play-in games, he might look at it like, oh, God, we got to do a play-in game. We've had championships before. But he did what Steph does. And in crunch time, he was great. He had 37 points. He had a 3 with 1:50 to go, then converted 4 free throws in the closing 5 seconds of the game to lock it up against Memphis, 121-116. They also got, and I think you can look at this 2 ways. Jimmy Butler, when it counts, man, you want him on the court. Regular season, not so much. I think that detracts from him a little bit, but once you get into the postseason with Jimmy Butler, he flips a switch. 38 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists in this game. When it's go time for Jimmy Butler, and it's always go time for Steph Curry, who talked about what's next as the Warriors now move on in the playoffs.
Full 48 minutes. We've had enough emotional roller coaster rides. The last 2 games, one didn't go our way, one did. So just a matter of sticking with it, trying to make plays down the stretch defensively, keying on certain guys. But like you said, playing it's why it's here. It's why the league created it, because it's a lot of drama. And it's nice to know what it feels like to win one. We are 1-3 now.
You also told me back in January, look, with your championship pedigree of you, Draymond, and Steve Kerr, you feel like you could beat anyone in the 7-game series. Now you face the Houston Rockets. How do you feel going into the series? You've faced them 5 times this year, including the in-season tournament.
Yeah, they're a great team. They're a number 2 seed for a reason. They're young, athletic, they're hard-nosed. Jalen Green playing at a high level. Sengun, up and down the roster. So it's going to be a tough physical series. We just love the opportunity to be in the playoffs again and have an opportunity to strategize and figure it out on the fly. So I'm looking forward to the weekend. No matter how it plays out, this is what you love.
Steph, Jimmy Butler had 68 points in these 2 games. He clearly is amped it up another level to playoff Jimmy. What can playoff Jimmy do for you guys as you enter this playoff series?
I mean, I know that nickname has a ring to it because of what he's done over the last 5-6 years, whatever. But he's been that player. It doesn't matter what the stat sheet looks like. He does what it takes to help us win. And against a team like Memphis tonight, they were giving him driving lanes. He was getting to the free throw line. He was finishing. He knocked down a couple threes. And he was doing it, half injured with his quad. So excited to get some rest. Excited for him to be back at this, in this environment, playoff basketball. And it's going to take everybody for us to get this done.
That's Steph Curry. Another big game for him, 37, as Golden State knocks off Memphis 121-116. So they start their first-round series against Houston at Houston on Sunday, and Memphis is not out yet. They will play the winner of the Mavericks-Kings game, which is tonight in Sacramento, to determine the 8th playoff spot. And speaking of the Mavericks, I assume he said this with a straight face. Nico Harrison, who made what has been panned as maybe one of the worst trades in the history of the NBA. And if you look at where the Lakers are now and you look at where the Mavericks are now, true that Kyrie Irving is hurt and out for the year, but this has made the Lakers a real factor for the NBA championship, and I don't think anybody knows where Dallas is going to go this year. But Harrison and the new Mavericks CEO, Rick Welts, I believe used to be with Golden State, if I'm not mistaken, they had a news conference yesterday, and Harrison said, "There's no regrets on the trade. Part of my job is to do the best thing for the Mavericks, not only today, but also for the future. And some of the decisions I'm going to make are going to be unpopular. That's my job. I have to stand by it." Well, you won't be standing by it long, because as soon as the season is over for Dallas, he's out of there. He's gone. But he's saying defense wins championship. Okay, we know that Luka doesn't play defense, but the Mavericks last year, in the last 20 games of the season, were the top-ranked defensive team in the league. They didn't play as well defensively against Boston in the finals, but they got to the finals last year with Luka and his lack of defense. So I don't know if you can hang your hat on that. He was asked about his future. He says, "I have 3 years left on my contract. I see myself finishing it out." Yeah, you'll see yourself out the door very quickly. And then Jason Kidd on a podcast. This is crazy. He's still, as far as I know, the head coach of the Mavericks, and he's saying that this deal could be remembered like the curse of the Bambino. He said this Luka trade might be kind of cool, like the Ruth deal. Seems to me, he's saying, because, everybody knows what the curse of the Bambino means. That's 86 years without a World Series championship. It suggests, and I'm sure it's true, that it came from the top, that nobody consulted him. Because I remember when the deal was made, he acted like, I didn't know about that. So, that's that comment by Nico Harrison, no regrets. Well, maybe you don't have regrets, but your head coach, at least for now, and whether the both of you go out the door together or Kidd stays and you go, this won't be a combination for much longer. And then this on the Wizards. Next big date for the Wizards is whenever the lottery is held. I think they usually have it like during the conference finals, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be sometime next month. And so he wrote about the last regular season game, not in the playoffs, the last game that was played at Capital One Arena, which was April 9th, and they gave away T-shirts, and they had a block party. And he also noted that they offered a 40% discount on Wizards merchandise, blindfolds and other Wizards fan Survivor gear. That's a pretty good line. They finished with the second worst record in franchise history with only 18 wins. And Tom writes, by losing on this scale, this consistently for many years should be, by all accounts, come with an apology from the owner, maybe even a personal "I'm sorry" for each fan. Apologies don't come easy for Ted Leonsis. He's never publicly apologized for his aborted move to Northern Virginia, gleefully abandoning, albeit briefly, the district. He did offer an apology of sorts before the start of the season. In an interview on his Monumental Sports Network, he said, "To be honest, I feel like I failed the fan base for the last 3 or 4 years." Well, you did by doing some stupid things like giving Bradley Beal a no-cut contract and things like that. But, okay, we're on track now with a new president, Michael Winger, and general manager Will Dawkins. They've been on the job for a couple of years, and they've talked about this as a teardown, that they knew that this season was going to be ugly as they pursue the ping-pong balls. But their coach says at the end of the regular season, this is just a start. Well, if this is just a start, how much more are they going to have to go through this? They are 33 and 131 over the last 2 years. 33 and 131. Tom writes, the Wizards' new brass, Winger and Dawkins, have carried out the mission, acquiring numerous draft picks with the hope they'll land someone along the way to change this organization. Many believe Duke freshman phenom Cooper Flagg is the game changer and will likely be the first pick in the upcoming draft. Washington, along with Utah and Charlotte, have the best chance of landing him at a 14% chance. This is what it comes down to for a franchise that hasn't won 50 games or hasn't been to a conference final in 46 years. Ping pong balls. I guess Wizards fans should be appreciative of the opportunity. And that's what this has been all about, this 2-year mission of 33 and 131. It's getting the ping pong balls to get a top pick and have somebody to build around. But when you're talking about this being a start, okay, if next year is a playoff year, they get in the play-in, fine. But you got to be thinking about winning more than 33 games over 2 years. 15 wins last year, which is the all-time low for the franchise, and then the second worst was 18 this year. They've hit 19 a couple of times, including the first year as Michael Jordan as the executive desk Jordan in that first season. So that's where we are as a franchise. We watch the NBA get started in their playoffs, and once again, we, as Wizards fans, put all of our hopes on ping pong balls. Some NFL stuff to get to, and something I think that is rather stunning from Travis Hunter. We'll get to that more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So we are getting down to crunch time for the NFL draft. It starts a week from tomorrow, Thursday night, round 1, Friday night, rounds 2 and 3, and they finish everything up on Saturday. And this is so different this year than it was last year. The whole quarterback thing and reaching for a quarterback. You don't hear a lot of names for this draft like you did last year. Of course, quarterbacks always get a lot more attention, probably more than they deserve. And the Commanders, who I think haven't changed their course of what was said in the news conference when Adam Peters was hired as general manager in January of last year, and what Dan Quinn said when he took over as coach. But it appears that the timeline has been moved up. And I don't think you could have predicted that in year 2 of this regime, they would have only 5 picks in the draft because Adam Peters rightly said when he was hired, we're going to build this team through the draft. But he saw the opportunity to get some veteran players with draft picks, and he's done it. So they're down to 5. But I would think that they're going to make more than 5 selections. The possibility that they'll trade down. Now, of course, Peter said a couple of weeks ago, he said you got to find somebody who wants to trade up when you're at 29, and that might not be that easy. But in discussing the draft, Field Yates and Mel Kiper think that there is a possibility, especially if one of these quarterbacks drops like a Jackson Dart all the way down to the bottom of the draft, that the Commanders, who clearly don't need a quarterback now, would be in a great position to make a trade.
The perfect storm has sort of come together for this to happen. 33 and 34, the Browns and the Giants both need a quarterback. Obviously, those teams unlikely to take a quarterback at 2 and 3. On top of that, we don't have this awesome quarterback class where the possibility of a Jackson Dart hanging around at 26 is certainly in play. On top of that, you've got teams like the Rams, like the Commanders, that I think would be totally comfortable moving back from 26 or 29. In the case of the Commanders, they have just 5 total picks because the strength of this draft, Greeny, is from about player 25 to about a player 100. So
hey, guess what, guys? If you want mixed opinion, talk quarterbacks 4 through 10. That's where you get some big-time mixed opinion from Tyler Shuck, Milroe to McCord, to Dylan Gabriel, who I think is underrated, going down to Quinn Ewers. So that group, I'll tell you, they're all over the place.
Yeah, so, that's going to be good for the Commanders when they're sitting at 29. And if some of these quarterbacks are on the board and teams are desperate for quarterbacks, they could make a trade. And, it's all about value, and it's all about how they value certain players. But I think that's going to be an interesting angle as we get to the end of round 1 a week from tomorrow night. Meantime, Travis Hunter, who's going to go somewhere in the top 3 for sure. He's one of the most amazing college football players we've ever had, playing both ways, offense and defense. And he played 713 snaps on offense this year, 748 on defense. First player since at least 1976 with at least 500 receiving yards and 4 interceptions in a single season. But he is now saying, I guess a lot of this is posturing for sure, but he said to CBS Sports that none of the teams that he has met with in the weeks before the draft have made an issue of him playing both offense and defense. And he says if there is a choice to be made, either wide receiver or cornerback or not play, he says the choice will be it's never playing football again because I've been doing it my whole life. I love being on the football field. I feel like I could dominate on each side of the ball, so I really enjoy doing it. The possibility of Travis Hunter walking away from football because the team that selects him says, no, you're too valuable to play both ways. Please. Jeff Darlington, ESPN reporter for the NFL, on this proclamation by Travis Hunter that it's either both ways or no way.
That's it's posturing quite a bit there because the NFL draft does work a certain way. I would say that plenty of NFL teams I've spoken to are willing to use him both ways. Now, would they use him in packages on offense and full-time on defense? That's one way of looking at it. Potentially the same thing if you were to go the other way around. Listen, he's asking to work more. I don't think a lot of teams are going to say no to that, but I will also say that telling a team that they're not going to do something or he's not going to play, that doesn't always work out. Then again, worked out for Eli Manning.
Yeah. That's how you get to one team that you want to go to and a team you stay away from that you don't want to go to. But here's the thing about both ways for Travis Hunter. He will subject himself to incredible criticism. And as great a corner as he may become a Hall of Fame cornerback, maybe even on the level of Deion Sanders. He's going to get burned. Cornerbacks get burned. Every time he gets burned, if he's playing wide receiver, the fans are going to say, wow, no wonder. You can't do both in the NFL. If he's a wide receiver and he drops passes, well, how can he be a full-time wide receiver when he's playing cornerback? These are jobs played by the best of the best. Think about the sifting out process. Every kid that you played peewee football with down to the draft picks, it's like, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's got to be more than 1 in a million, right? And even like guys who are all state, wherever they go, they find out when they get to college, everybody's all state, and of that group of all state, a couple trickle out for the NFL draft. So he's not playing against, a widespread variety of teams that he did at Colorado and even at Jackson State. And he also was in a unique situation. He was not the quality of player to go to Jackson State. He was way too good for that. But Deion said, we'll play both ways. So he said, okay, well, I'll learn from, Hall of Fame corner who also played some wide receiver, so it makes sense. There's no way on earth that he's playing both ways at the level that he did in college. Will there be some spot chances for him to play wide receiver? Absolutely. But you also have to see how, players are valued and how you have to keep them safe to some degree. Gale Sayers, one of the greatest running backs who ever lived, was also a kick returner. And while he wasn't injured, a devastating knee injury, which ultimately, shortened his career to, I think, 5 years, he was doing both. And eventually, the more times you're on the field, especially running in the open field, the greater chance of injury. Like Richie Pettibone said about Darrell Green. If he was not going to be needed to be the starting cornerback in his rookie year, he would have been the greatest kick returner in the history of the NFL. And as it was, they did use him in certain spots. And if you look at the Doug Williams Super Bowl performance, I'm not sure they get there if Darrell Green doesn't return a punt in Chicago. But you got to spot these guys. You cannot play them that amount of plays for, A, the reason of injury, and number two, the amount of preparation and concentration and everything it takes to play the position, not just quarterback. All the 5 o'clock sessions that Jaden Daniels went through to prepare himself for games, that's quarterback, but other players have to do it too. Luke McCaffrey's in there with him as well, and McCaffrey's preparing himself to play. So it's a nice idea that he could play both ways. It's not a realistic idea at all, and I agree 100% with Darlington. More from Darlington, and this is on the teammate of Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and where is he going to go? Is he going to possibly slide down to the New Orleans Saints at number 9, or might they go in a different direction? This was Darlington yesterday on our morning show on Sportsmanlike on what the Saints might be doing at 9.
I don't think it's so significant that we should all of a sudden go, be printing up the Sanders Giants jerseys. We're not there yet. And quite frankly, I think we're pretty far way off. But Joe Schoen, the general manager of the Giants, is the type of guy who's going to do his homework on all of the quarterbacks, and this is part of that. Is it significant? I would say it's only significant, because it means that the Giants are still considering taking him at number 3. I personally would still be surprised if, in fact, that turned out to be the case.
Jeff, you can't see Chris Canty right now, but he is very excited by that news. A landing spot that we had for Shedeur Sanders was the New Orleans Saints, and that conversation has shifted now that we got word about Derek Carr. What can you tell us about the Derek Carr New Orleans Saints situation currently?
Yeah, it's very peculiar. It's definitely going to shift the way that the Saints approach. Well, I shouldn't say that entirely. I was going to say that it's going to shift the way the Saints were going to approach this offseason, but I'm of the belief, based on my conversations, that the Saints were already very squarely looking at addressing quarterback in the draft. What I do think this does is puts more of a priority to make that pick at number 9. I don't think they're in a position to be as patient as they might have been. Like the Giants. When the Giants went out and they added 2 veteran quarterbacks, it allows them to kind of look at that third spot and say, okay, we've got Russell Wilson, we've got Jameis Winston. Do we need to go quarterback here? The Saints now, I would say they can't just play the game of we're going to wait for the perfect player. I personally think at number 9 overall, they need to go best available quarterback. To me, that's the position that they're now in. With this is a situation with Derek Carr that is fluid and ongoing, but it is one that has caught them off guard since the hiring of Kellen. So I do think that they're going to have to address this situation, even if perhaps it's not exactly ideal what player they pick at number 9.
Jeff, I want to dive deeper into this Derek Carr thing. I just want to walk through the last 24 to 48 hours, okay? So Dan Graziano sat here with us yesterday and said this situation is muddy. We walked out yesterday. I said to Smalls, I'm fascinated by this Derek Carr thing. And she said, why specifically? And I said, well, Shefty hasn't reported on it. Graz hasn't reported on it. Darlington hasn't reported on it. Fowler hasn't reported on it. You just called it peculiar and that there may be information that the Saints did not know. Am I wrong to think this is one of the weirdest situations we've seen in a while in the NFL? Because no one seems to understand what's going on here with Carr and the Saints.
You're not wrong. I just think it's a scenario where this time of year in the off season like this, there tends to be a period where if there's going to be a disconnect between a team and a player in terms of the information, this is it. This is not the time of year when you have players in the building every day where the training staff is looking over your shoulder and very literally over your shoulder.
But this is the intended starting quarterback for a football team.
That is correct. I think peculiar is a good word. I mean, we don't have. Let's put it this way. If we knew exactly what Derek Carr's situation was, we would hear about it from the team. And that's kind of the tricky part of this, is that the team right now is still trying to figure out exactly what this means for Derek Carr and for his season. It's the best I can tell you at this point. When it comes to injuries, I think it's really important to just make sure that everybody involved stays as patient as possible in terms of figuring out exactly what it means. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now with Derek Carr. I know it's not the best answer in the world, but it's just one of those things where now the tough part about this is, as much as we're kind of like trying to talk around it, the Saints have a draft upcoming, and they have to make a decision based on Derek Carr's availability in week 1. So if they're sitting here saying we don't know if he's going to be available, they've got to act accordingly. And to me, that's the reason why we can't just push this aside and say it's a non-story, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
So we got a lot of Michigas going on with the Saints, right? That's Jeff Darlington of ESPN. Number one, you got Derek Carr with this mysterious shoulder injury. It's just in the reported stage. We don't know if he's going to need surgery and miss the season. They're sitting there at number 9. Are they satisfied with what they've got at quarterback? I don't know. And if you're looking at Shedeur Sanders, are the Giants really going to take Shedeur Sanders at 3, or are they just trying to get the Saints interested in moving up to try and get him? Is they trying to scare the Saints, if they really want Shedeur, into moving up? This is all part of the draft game that goes on. This is all part of the business of draft, which goes on forever. You know, they used to hold the draft in February. Believe it or not, season would end in mid-January with the Super Bowl, and then the draft would be in February, and everybody would take off until, minicamp in May. And now it stretches out till late April, so you've got all this intrigue going on, and the social media and the expanded media has changed everything. Ooh, who's doing what? What do they have? Oh, they're bringing him in? Why are they doing that? Oh, there's a mysterious shoulder injury. Yeah, that's the way the game is played. And having worked with Mel Kiper over the years, I've seen this play out so many times. And he says, don't believe everything you hear. There's a lot of posturing going on, and there's a lot of head fakes and so forth. So that's where the Saints are. If they wind up taking Shedeur Sanders at 9, I think that's going to satisfy everybody. I don't think that there's going to be a big problem from the Dion family that the son is going to play there. But you never know. Meantime, we've got the 2 rather intriguing players. One is Micah Parsons, who we know is going to play this year. He's going into the last year of his deal with the Cowboys. Is he going to get a monster extension? Or are they going to play it out and maybe franchise him? Then you also have Aaron Rodgers, who's playing his usual game of, I don't know if I'll retire or not. I don't know where I want to go. There's also a report out there that he's told the Minnesota Vikings that he'll mentor J.J. McCarthy, and he'll go there on a 1-year deal. He sees that, I guess, as his chance to win another Super Bowl. Who knows? This is more from Darlington on those 2 enigmatic players, Micah Parsons and Aaron Rodgers. First, Parsons.
If this was another team in another situation, we didn't have precedent, I'd say, yeah, it's a good sign. We've gone down this road so many times with the Cowboys every single year where I can't tell you how many times I've come on, whether this show or Get Up in the past several years, and say, there's great energy and confidence that they're going to get this deal done in Dallas, whether it be for, Dak for multiple years, and it just never happened. So I'm definitely a pen to paper kind of guy when it comes to the Cowboys at this point. I don't think anything is done until they literally tell us that the contract is signed.
Jeff, we feel the same way about Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. Obviously, we've been waiting for that to happen. What sense can you give us of a timeline here, if you have one at all? A lot of us are assuming maybe after the draft, once he sees what they do with that pick. What do you think?
The Steelers are wondering the same thing. And I was at the Masters all week, so I wasn't really diving into NFL stuff until last night. I was kind of just reaching back out to some people saying, what's going on with this and what's going on with that. I was surprised. I was probably most surprised that reaching back out after 9 days on Aaron Rodgers, that it's exactly where it was 9 days ago. It feels like we need something to happen here. I'm not saying that the Steelers should put a deadline on Aaron Rodgers, because I don't think that would go over real well with Aaron. I think he'd probably just say, all right, then move on. But I do think the Steelers internally need to say, all right, if we don't have an answer from Aaron, we have to proceed when it comes to the draft at the very least, as if we do not have a starting quarterback. So to me, the lack of an update is definitely important, but we do have a week before the draft, or, a little bit of time before the draft for them to actually get that deal done.
Last thing here with Jeff Darlington, ESPN NFL reporter, PGA reporter as well, did a great job all weekend at the Masters. Do you think that the Saints and Aaron Rodgers could potentially start talking?
I don't. I don't think that. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't see that being the type of roster at this point that Aaron is going to be looking to join. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is in a position right now where he's saying, man, I just need to find a team that has a starting quarterback opening. That's just not where he's at in his life. So to me, no, I still think this is, personally, I think it's still Steelers, and I think that if something for some weird reason changes with the Vikings, that the Vikings could reemerge as a place for Aaron Rodgers. To me, that's still the two teams that I would put most at the front of the radar when it comes to Rodgers.
I said last thing, we're out of time, but I have to ask a follow-up. What could change?
I don't know. I mean, listen, what do we really know about JJ at this point in terms of, if he has an off season where it looks like he's just not quite there in terms of his health, like he's not bounced back entirely, or he's just not, ready for this moment, by all accounts, they're giving him every chance to do that. But, I mean, there's a reason why the Vikings were so interested in Rodgers already this offseason. And to me, that is something that could still be revisited by the organization at some point this offseason.
It seems to make sense other than Rodgers is so verstunken crazy. I mean, that's really how you have to look at this, because if you're Aaron Rodgers and if you're the Vikings as well, you got to say, damn, we almost had the best record in the league with Sam Darnold, a retread. And Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. Yeah, he's 41 years old. But if we had that boost there, maybe that's with what we've got, that's a team that can overtake Detroit and go on to the Super Bowl. So I think Rodgers, this game of chicken that he's playing, and it's really, there's no downside really to what he's doing, because if he decides he wants to play, somebody's going to take him and they'll figure out a way to make it work under the cap. But if he's waiting for the Vikings, it might not be the worst strategic move. It's just the way that he does business that's so off-putting. I think that's what bothers a lot of fans, and it apparently doesn't bother the Steelers because they're willing to wait this out. They're willing to wait and see. They've already let Russell Wilson walk. He's now with the Giants, so who knows? That makes it a very intriguing situation at this point. Coming up, it was 85 years ago today that Bob Feller did something in baseball that hadn't been done before and hasn't been done since 85 years later. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Got Orioles preview coming up at 10:30. Rough start for the Birds at 6-10. We'll talk to Melanie Newman, who's part of the broadcast crew, a trailblazer in many ways, and we'll get to her story coming up at 10:30. Meantime, we look back on 85 years ago today, which is even before my time. But it was on this day in 1940. The season used to start later then. They played only 154 games. And it began for the Cleveland Indians at Comiskey Park on a blustery 40-degree day. And Bob Feller, who was only 21 years old, at the age of 20 for the Cleveland Indians in 1939, he'd gone 24-9. So he's coming back now at the age of 21 and opening the season with a no-hitter. A no-hitter had never been pitched before on opening day. A no-hitter has never been pitched since on opening day. And, no-hitters by one pitcher, they're becoming more and more rare. They happen from time to time, and I guess they happen with a little bit more frequency because of the approach of batters where they're looking to hit it out of the park every time instead of, getting the ball in play. So we tend to have more of them. We have more strikeouts. But Feller had trouble gripping his curveball, so pretty much he threw all fastballs, and he was known as Rapid Robert. He threw the ball as fast as many, although there's a great story of Shirley Povich taking Walter Johnson to see Bob Feller pitch to see how fast he was, and Walter and Povich called him Train. And Train said to me, not as fast. So you could take that for what it's worth. But he only struck out 8 in this game. He allowed 5 walks, and the Indians won the game against the Chicago White Sox. And that is the only no-hitter that has ever been pitched on opening day. And Feller, who had at the end of his life, or really post-baseball, he'd talk to anybody. And he did a lot of things, like he did minor league appearances where he'd, show that he still had a great fastball and things like that. He was an interesting man, in some ways heroic in that he fought in World War II. In other ways, not so much, in that he came into baseball when it was still segregated in 1940 and pitched in a period of time when it became segregated, and was not the most open-minded about race. Let's put it that way. I wouldn't call him a racist, but he was not the most open-minded about it. But anyway, more about what he was as a person. They play, I guess, 2 games in Chicago to start the season, and then they come home on the train. They always played afternoon games then, and they were greeted by 7,000 people at the Union Terminal. The next day, the paper ran an article about an 8-year-old boy, huge Indians fan, who'd been in the hospital with spinal meningitis. And the article mentioned how much he'd improved while listening on the radio to Feller's no-hitter. As a result, Feller surprised the youngster with a visit to the hospital with a ball signed by the entire team and signed by himself. And Feller later said that the kid was able to go home that day. That may have been embellishment, but that also, like Babe Ruth supposedly saying to a kid, "I'm going to hit 2 home runs for you," makes for a nice story. But Feller had a radio show in the mid-'60s. This is 1966, so we're going back here a long time. He is talking here about his no-hitter that was pitched on this day in 1940.
I walked the first batter on 4 pitches, but the cheers turned to moans as the next 2 batters grounded out. 2 outs now. My control was holding. But wait. The next batter walked, then another. The bases were loaded. 1 minute I was all but finished with the inning, and the next minute I was in trouble. But I blazed a fastball past Bob Kennedy, and the trouble vanished, temporarily. We Indians got a lone run in the 4th inning. Beyond that, the zeros kept popping up on the scoreboard. I sighed with nervous relief as one after another of the Sox batters paraded back to their dugout. By the 8th inning, I had retired the last 15 batters in order. By now, everyone knew I was working on a no-hitter, and they started picking up support from the Chicago fans, who were naturally torn betwixt applauding a great performance and going home without an opening day victory for their own club, to whom they were always so loyal. Fans yelled for me to mow them down, but still other fans, and of course, were yelling, "Sox get a hit." Then came the telltale inning, the 9th. Shadows closed in as the first batter came to the plate in the 9th. I got him. 2 more to go. I retired the second batter, and I could feel a chilly breeze whistling through the park as I retired him. 1 more to go, and I couldn't have faced a tougher hitter, one of the most dangerous hitters in the American League, no less than Luke Appling. I worked carefully. I had to. The count went to 3-2, and Appling fouled off a half dozen pitches before walking. That brought up the toughest hitter in the American League for me to pitch to, in the person of Taft Wright. The tying run on first, the winning run at the plate. The first pitch was a fastball. He fouled it off to the screen. Then a low ball outside. 1-1. Next pitch, a fastball at the knee, which he pulled between first and second. Ray Mack, a great defensive second baseman, dashed to his left, back on the grass. He dove, speared the ball, did a complete somersault, threw to first base, and nipped right by less than half a step. The game was over. Indians 1, Sox 0. And I had pitched the first no-hitter on opening day.
You think he read that? Yes, he did read that. In 1966, that's Bob Feller. And as he liked to say, the batting averages for the White Sox going into the second game of the season were exactly the same as they were going into the first game of the season, and that is the first and only time that has ever happened in Major League Baseball history. He went on to win 27 games that year, led the league in wins, innings pitched, strikeouts, ERA, games started, complete games, and tied for the lead in shutouts. Finished second in the MVP voting to Hank Greenberg, was voted American League Player of the Year by the Sporting News. There was no Cy Young in those days. 38 years later to the day, the season is now longer. It's expanded to 162 games, and it starts earlier. But Bob Forsch of the St. Louis Cardinals, on the same day that Feller pitched his no-hitter on opening day, pitched a no-hitter against the Philadelphia Phillies, and this is how it ended.
Here's the pitch from Forsch to Boa. A swing and a ground ball to third. Reese has it. Close. No-hitter. Oh! And Forsch has won his third game of the year, and he is mobbed by his teammates. Don't hurt him. 54 years, and we finally see it here in St. Louis. It's been 54 years since they've had a no-hitter, and Bob Force, who's 3-0, has just taken care of that. We can do it. Well, he did it. What a thrilling moment. How about that, Bob? Wasn't that something? That's incredible. Just incredible. Super performance, Jack. Just an outstanding ninth-inning performance. 3 tough guys to get, and he got them all. The entire club is on the mound. Bob Force hasn't even gotten off the pitching mound yet. The entire club out there congratulating him. Everybody on their feet here. Bob Force has just pitched a no-hitter. There's a lot of hugging going on there. All the players, all the coaches, the manager, the press, the photographers. And now listen to the hand as Force finally makes it off the mound for the dugout. What a thrilling afternoon here at Busch Stadium.
That is the call on KMOX, as was the first no-hitter in 54 years for the Cardinals, and not without controversy. Top of the 8th inning, Gary Maddox of the Phillies hit a ground ball to Ken Reitz at third. Reitz reached for the ball. It went under his glove. And Force later said, I knew I had a no-hitter, so did everybody there, but everybody in the stadium was watching the scoreboard to see whether it was called an error. Neil Russo of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, who was the official scorer, called it an error. And he later said that far along in the game, it had to be a clean hit for him to rule it a hit. So he may have gotten some help in that no-hitter. And there was some carping by the Phillies after that. They protested. They claimed that Maddox's grounder was a hit despite the scorer's ruling. Force finished the game with 96 pitches. And a really cool thing, a little less than a year later, April 7th, 1979, his brother Ken also pitched a no-hitter for the Houston Astros. And they go down in history with the great pitching brother duos, the Necros, the Perrys, Dizzy and Daffy Dean. And they did something that none of those guys ever did, that they each pitched a no-hitter and pitched it less than a year apart. Ken got a telegram. It read, "Congratulations on your no-hitter. I know how it feels, every minute of it. Your little brother." And, these opening days can go a variety of ways. I remember 1971, the last opening day that the Senators played at RFK Stadium. They played the Oakland A's with a rookie pitcher by the name of Vida Blue. And Vida Blue got shelled. I think the Senators won the game 8-1. Vida Blue didn't lose again until August. So opening days can be deceiving a little bit, but also you have these great performances early in the season. Sometimes they say that the pitchers are ahead of the hitters, and maybe the cold weather has a lot to do with it. It really hurts when you foul off a ball in cold weather. But it was on this day in 1940 that Bob Feller threw the last opening day no-hitter. And it was on this day in 1978 that Bob Force threw the first no-hitter in 54 years for the St. Louis Cardinals. And the Mets went through years and years and years before they finally got a no-hitter. And it's it was really cool to see that the Nationals were able to get a couple of them for Max Scherzer when he was here. So, anyway, that's enough of that. Much more NFL talk in the next hour. Also, Melanie Newman, one of the voices of the Orioles, will join us with Orioles Preview. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. You can't tell your Orioles without a medical report. My God, they've been hit with injuries, particularly starting pitching. They are off to a terrible start. They're 6-10. And their big offseason pickup in the rotation, Charlie Morton, has not worked out so far. He's 0-4, losing again last night. Can they pick up the pieces? Yes, they can. 16 games doesn't decide a season. That's less than 10%. But, it can get early late, as Yogi Berra used to say, especially in that division with New York and Boston and Toronto and so forth. So we'll get the lowdown on that from Melanie Newman when we do the Orioles preview show coming up at 10:30. We do that every Wednesday. The Orioles are playing a series against the Cleveland Indians. That's Game 2 tonight, and we'll have it for you here, starting with pregame at 6 o'clock. They play a lot of weeknight games until school lets out at 6:30. So pregame here will start at 6 o'clock tonight. We'll also hear from Mike Elias, the general manager, who talked to the media last night before the game about all the injuries and what the plans are for getting these pitchers back in the rotation and so forth. But we're on full NFL watch now because the draft is coming up a week from tomorrow night, and it's just crazy with the quarterbacks this year versus the quarterbacks last year, where you knew that Caleb Williams was going to go number one to the Bears. Okay, maybe there was a little bit of doubt that he might slip to number two. We knew that Jaden Daniels was going to go number two to Washington, and that big uproar about Top Golf when they brought in the other quarterback prospects with him. Oh, they're disrespecting him. He's never going to want to play in Washington. No. He doesn't play golf, but he liked it. He said he liked talking to the other guys. I mean, they knew what kind of person he was, so they were going to take him. And I'm sure that they were happy that he fell to number two. I don't know how they felt about Caleb Williams, but I know for a fact they were in love with Jaden Daniels. And obviously they made the right call. And then, you had the other quarterbacks up there. J.J. McCarthy was very well thought of. And, you knew that the quarterback draft was going to pretty much go the way it went. This year, it seems to be all over the place. Like Shedeur Sanders could go as high as number 3, or he might fall down to the bottom of the first round. We don't know. Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, where's he going to go? He's all over the place. Some say he's a better prospect than Shedeur. Okay. And then you got Cam Ward, who seems to be the consensus number 1 quarterback and may go number one to Tennessee. But get this, and this is how these things work. There is a quarterback, if you're not familiar with him, named Tyler Shug from Louisville. And he is very typical of quarterbacks of this era. Started at Oregon, went to Texas Tech, went to Louisville over the past 7 years. Realize this. How long have we been watching Trevor Lawrence play for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Seems like a decade, right? Well, this guy Shug was in the same recruiting class as Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and will turn 26 in September. He's 26 years old. There are quarterbacks who've won a couple of MVPs by that point and Super Bowls, 26 years old. So there's according to Diana Rossini, and she's really good at this stuff. She's an outstanding reporter for The Athletic, used to be with ESPN. And she says that there's a current NFL coach who believes that Shug is the best quarterback in the draft and even better than likely number 1 Cam Ward out of Miami. He's big. He's 6'5", 220 pounds, has the athleticism, can run, all of that. But many have him projected as like the 6th quarterback of the 9 quarterback prospects. And one general manager is telling her, or head coach is telling her, oh, yeah, he could be the best quarterback. Maybe it's Tom Brady. If somebody said, oh, yeah, Tom Brady's going to be the best quarterback out of the class of 2000. What? You're out of your mind. You're crazy. Chad Pennington, come on. Well, we'll see how it all plays out. So that's where we are. There's so much uncertainty going to this draft, including Shedeur Sanders, who is, I guess he worked out for the Giants yesterday, who may or may not be interested in taking him, kind of all over the place with Shedeur as well. This was Tony and Mike on that yesterday on PTI.
The New York Giants, who hold the 3rd pick, will reportedly hold a private workout on Thursday with Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. That's just 1 week before the actual draft. The Giants will separately work out Alabama's Jalen Milroe and Louisville's Tyler Shuck. Tone, the Giants already signed Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson this offseason. So does the team's interest in Sanders, the alleged interest, seem sincere to you or just like a bluff to lure a team, anybody, into trading up?
So I'm not going to question the sincerity of this. I have no reason to particularly question it. But I will say, as you know, I feel this way. This guy does not meet their immediate needs. Okay, the Giants are a lousy team. They won 3 games this past season. It's impossible for us to believe that the coach and the general manager will get another year if they have another bad year. So they have to win now. They have to win now. That's why you don't get a rookie quarterback and turn over a team to a rookie quarterback.
You mean like the Commanders just did successfully?
Much better. He was a much
You don't know how
better,
good this guy's going to be?
He's not going to be that good
Shador?
because nobody's been that good.
Okay.
He's not going to be that good. They have to win now. That's why you get Russell Wilson. That's why you get Jameis Winston.
I understand why they did.
Your future. Look, you may think that Shador Sanders is your future,
right?
But if you're the coach and the GM, your future is right now because you won't have another year. Now, what has happened with Derek Carr means that New Orleans needs a quarterback. Okay, so they could chase Aaron Rodgers. They could try to trade for Kirk Cousins.
Stop with
or
Aaron Rodgers.
Or they could
We're
draft
not one
a
of those
quarterback.
shows.
But they're sitting at 9. So the logical trade partner is the Giants at 3. That's the logical trade partner.
But
That's
if I'm
what
the
I think
Giants and I can't get the pass rusher out of Penn State, if I trade down from who am I going to get? If you're talking about winning now, you better get some damn players. Okay. And you got another kid from Colorado who may be the greatest prospect of all time.
He may not last to 3.
He may not.
No, so he may
okay,
not last to 3.
but then that means you got the kid from Penn State.
Yeah.
Who's going to be?
But do you agree that taking a rookie quarterback when your jobs are on the line, you have to win now?
Again, okay.
He's
that
1 in a
sounds
million.
great.
Jaden Daniels is 1 in a million.
But we just saw it.
Right.
We saw it 50 yards from this studio.
Did he win the Heisman as well? Jaden
Yeah,
Daniels?
he won the Heisman.
Yeah,
he won the Heisman.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know how good Shador Sanders is going to be. But I will tell you this. The Giants thought Daniel Jones was going to be real good. Didn't work out. The Jets next door thought Zach Wilson would be really good. It didn't work out. Because right now, the Meadowlands in the last few years is a burial grounds for quarterbacks. It's bad.
Yeah, so that's Tony and Mike on the on all the yak that goes on now, and the fun and games about who's going to do what and who's going to trade up, who's going to trade down. Are they going to take a quarterback? Which quarterback are they going to take? It's all part of the big dance that goes on every April. A couple of other things. Keeping an eye on the Caps. Last night they got the hat trick from Dylan Strome, so they get a win, at least one win going into the playoffs. They finish up the season. Tomorrow night in Pittsburgh. I imagine they're going to rest some players because the playoffs are coming quick. They could start as early as, I believe, Sunday. I don't think they'd make the Caps play on Saturday, but it could be only a couple of days before they get going, so they're going to finish up. And it's still undecided who they're going to play because Carolina could do the Canadiens a favor tonight and roll over as if the Canadiens get 1 point against Carolina, they will clinch the last playoff spot. But if not, the Blue Jackets, Columbus Blue Jackets, they stay alive because they got a 3-0 win in Philadelphia last night. So they still have a chance. So it could be Columbus, it could be Montreal, but one of those teams is going to come here. I think it could be as late as Monday night, but it won't go much further than that because the playoffs go on forever. So the last seed in the East is either going to be Montreal or it's going to be the Blue Jackets, and we'll find out tonight. Just 1 point for Montreal will do it. And this left over from the weekend, and I talked about this, I thought really petty stuff from Bryson DeChambeau after the Masters was over. He didn't have to say this. Rory McIlroy had his moment. He was paired with DeChambeau. DeChambeau really wasn't a factor down the stretch. He was, I guess, 4 shots back or something like that. And after Rory won in that incredible sudden death playoff against Justin Rose, DeChambeau said that McIlroy didn't speak to him. And he went on to say, he was asked, did he say anything or what did you say to him? He said he wouldn't speak to me. And apparently that was planned. And I would say this to DeChambeau. Again, it's not a member guest. You don't chat it up and have a couple of beers. This is a man who's trying to exercise the ghosts of 11 years of not winning a Masters, or not winning a major, I should say, and the epic collapse that he had in 2011. He wanted to win. Well, apparently this was all planned. McIlroy has a well-known sports psychologist. His name is Bob Rotella. And Bob Rotella is part of the George Mason story of 2006 because Bob Rotella was brought in to talk to the team before the season started. And, this is a mid-major program. No program like that had ever made it to the Final Four. And Rotella asked the players to close their eyes and envision what they wanted. And one of them said the Final Four. And that stayed with them the whole season. Now, Rotella does a lot of work with a variety of athletes and teams and so forth. But he is his guy, and he said it didn't have anything to do with Bryson. He said that was just the game plan all week. We wanted to get lost in it. We didn't want to pay attention to what anyone else was scoring or shooting or swinging or how far they were hitting it. We just wanted Rory to play his game, and it paid off. You know, it was rocky. It was like Franz Klammer in that famous tape from the 1976 Olympics where he almost skis off the course and then gets himself back on. But he did it. He did it. And as far as DeChambeau and getting his nose out of joint because Rory wouldn't talk to him, too bad. And Rotella is the one who's saying, now, I wonder about this. And actually, I was talking to some people yesterday who play a lot of golf, and this narrative of Rory all of a sudden having all the pressure off him because he finally won, who knows? You know, is that going to be the case? Like he can look at any situation in golf now and go, oh, I stared down the barrel when I won the Masters in 2025. No. I mean, these things can pop up from time to time, but it seems to be a popular thing to say that, you can get this exercised if you do what you need to do and you somehow slay all the dragons with that. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. And we'll see where this goes, but it was just interesting to hear Bob Rotella say, yeah, of course, that's the game plan. You know, you don't get chatty when you're out in a major trying to win a major championship. And we'll see where this goes. Boy, the pettiness that goes on here. You've heard about the dust-up between the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, and Donald Trump, who decided to go in a public forum and take her on, like, are you going to follow our rules here that we can't have transgender athletes in sports? And she said, I'll see you in court. Well, apparently this is going to court. The Trump administration said today that they're suing the Education Department for not complying with the government's push to ban transgender athletes in girls' sports, escalating a dispute over whether the state is abiding by federal law that bars discrimination in education based on sex. I personally believe that transgender athletes should not compete against women. I do believe that, but this public spat that's going on, this is what the administration feels like it needs to concentrate on. Really, I mean, this is what just so you can win, just so you can show the governor of Maine who's boss in this. Really, I mean, is this what this is all about? There was a story in the Post last week about a transgender athlete. She throws the discus, I believe. And she was banned in Virginia, Northern Virginia, from taking part. So she's joined the men's team. Okay, and she's competing in that. If it comes to that, that's fine. But this is what the administration is concentrating on, going to court to try and force their will on the governor of Maine. I mean, don't governors have some jurisdiction over their state? This is a lot of what's going on, and it's trickling into the sports world, and I think it's a really bad look. I just think so. All right, coming up, we'll talk to Melanie Newman. She has broken down some barriers, and we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the rough start for the Orioles as they're now in last place, plus some Mike Elias updating the media yesterday on injuries, particularly starting pitching. That and more in Orioles preview next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.